Hello everyone, and welcome to On Sprue Review. My name is Violet Sun, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Infernal Enrapturess by Games Workshop. This is usable in both Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40,000. As I say, it's kind of interesting that Games Workshop many years ago decided that they were going to have a range of minis that were usable in both their main games, Warhammer 40,000 and at the time Warhammer Fantasy, and that's still true today. And quite a lot of the models I think you could even use in the Horus Heresy as well, although obviously at the time recording this we're waiting for the new Horus Heresy rules, so we'll see how usable they are in that. It's kind of interesting, like if you're only got the time or space for one army and you want to play multiple systems, I guess there's an option. Yeah, let's have a little closer look at the Enrapturess's box. This is unfortunately what I like to refer to as a barren void box, because you've just got the model kind of in the middle of a nothingness. I guess being stuck in an endless, boundless void with Slaanesh demons probably an unpleasant thought, but I don't know. I'd rather see this model on a battlefield with, you know, some sort of something going on around it. The back of the box kind of makes up for it. Lots of really nice detail shots of the Painted Studio Mini, really showing off the interesting design and some amount of painting information as well. I think it's pretty good. Whoever did this mini for the studio team did a really great job on it. With the box kind of looked at, let's have a look what you get inside. As you might expect for a single miniature of this size, you get a sprue, a base, and some instructions. No surprises there. It's a little odd that this model comes on a like oval cavalry base rather than a round base, but I guess it's to make it fit a little bit better. Let's do as we usually do and take a little look at the instructions first. First of all, it's a full colour booklet and quite a thick one for a single model. Nice full colour instructions for how to put your model together, not too many steps. This model is 23 pieces, which is quite high, but I guess it's kind of two figures on one base, so yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. The reason this is such a thick booklet is because you have rules in many different languages for two different systems. So quite a lot of it is just data sheets that you're not going to look at because you only want the data sheet in your language, but I think it's important to have the data sheets for different languages in here. It is a little bit out of date, this version. I bought it a little while ago. I don't know if they've changed it, but it has an 8th edition data sheet rather than the 9th edition for 40k, and I think the Age of Sigmar data sheet is also from 2nd edition Age of Sigmar and went on to 3rd. So it's the problem with packing these in rather than just making them available online is that they go out of date. I will say the back of the booklet has by far the best painting guide that we've had yet, giving full base shade and layering painting suggestions for pretty much every part of this model. I think it's a really good inclusion, either if you're new to painting or just want to try and replicate what's on the Studio Mini. I think this is a really good way to get at least close. Obviously, you've got to have the skill and the practice and the brush control, but knowing what paints to put where is really handy. So yeah, overall, Good clear instructions, good painting advice, kind of wasted paper for a bunch of data sheets. Not a bad instruction booklet. Of course, we want to have a look at the sprue. Now, it's quite hard to know where to start with the sprue. There are so many parts, and so many of them are small parts, rather than there being sort of a big central chunk to this model. But the instructions kind of start with the, completely willing guy who is part of the Enrapturess' harp. Let's just say that, completely willing demon helper. Let's have a look at the top part of the harp. I really like the detail on this. I think they've made it suitably gruesome with this guy's arms, and I'm guessing these are meant to be like pulled out sinews and tendons to make the strings of the harp. The really pointy, jaggedy edges that really have become a big part of the demon aesthetic for the Games Workshop miniatures. This single piece alone is a great bit of design. Another thing that I think really amps up the sort of gruesome factor of this model is this piece of open scarification wound on the assistant's back. The logo of Slaanesh carved into his flesh. You could make that as nasty as you want. I think when I get around to painting this mini, I'm going to be putting a little bit of gore into that to make it extra nasty. We may as well look at the rest of this poor chap's anatomy before we move on to the demonette. We've got his legs, which are really nicely sculpted, actually. I think whoever did this figure really captured that look of someone's, when someone sort of squats down, their muscles sort of bulge out, and it looks a little bit odd because, the flesh is sort of squishing against each other, and that is really nicely captured on these quite simple parts. And another really grisly kind of detail that you can't see so much on the studio miniature because the assistant's head is pointed down. His mouth is completely sealed over with his own skin. So, make of that what you will. Quite a lot of the Enrapturess is actually made up of these pieces of her, coat. Some really nicely made fabric folds sculpted on detail. I quite like having a sculpted on piece to paint. I guess it would be an applique on the fabric. Because whilst I can do a little bit of freehand, this gives you something to paint rather than having to freehand. Obviously, if you then want to do a different symbol, it's a bit of a pain to clean out all the bits from inside the fold, but I don't know, it's nice enough. I think most people are happy enough just doing a bit of highlighting on that and call it a day. There's also some nice little trinkets on here, more sort of Slaanesh-y symbols and other baubles. And the other part of the coat is quite plain on the backside, but has one of the Enrapturess's legs. She's quite slender, as demonettes are, so there's not a lot to her beyond the coat. Has kind of a couple more little bits of coat. This is, I think, the downfall of this model for building is this coat's broken up, and then it's kind of hard for me if you wanted to do some kind of sub-assembly to make it easier to paint the undersides of things. I think you're going to struggle a little bit with this kit. You could look at the Enrapturess's head. Really nice face sculpt, really demonic but feminine. I really like the earrings they've gone for on this, and like the circlet headband. Yeah, really, really cool bit of sculpting. another big detail of this model is this enormous plat. Really nicely sculpted detail and quite an interesting piece for, I don't know, just adding a different texture. You've got like the flesh fabric and having this kind of one piece of really high density detail of the hair really gives you something to paint and put a load of highlighting and really make some really different, interesting textures. Of course, she's a demon, so she has some really big, impressive horns as well as hair. I think it's nicely sculpted. There's some nice shape to it, to the upper, the kind of bigger horn. Kind of the Enrapturess's main body is this weird piece, which a lot of it is flattened out. See it even more on the back side. There are these kind of flat sections that where the coat interferes. It's a little bit odd. It looks fine when you put the model together. Kind of the rest of her torso's here. It's a very odd breakdown of parts. It works, but it's not a model you're going to get a lot of conversion potential on. I mean, the option is that you stick it all together and then cut it apart again if you want to use bits of this for something else, but I think this model pretty much only makes this model, which is fine. Not everything has to be converted fodder. Another cool piece is this Slaanesh icon that goes on top of the heart. I guess it being separate does give you some options. You can either use this on something else on here, or, there's a little space to do a little bit of variation if you did want to try and make the model a little bit unique. And that's kind of what I've got to say with this model. I think it's really nice, but there's some very odd choices. The breakdown of some of the parts is going to be tricky, I think, for sub-assemblies if you want to try and paint the underside of the coat. I think the easiest option is to try and paint two pieces, so you kind of have the assistant and the heart pieces in one sub-assembly and the entire demonette as much as possible in one, and not stick her to a base, so you can then sort of, not have the base in the way, so you can paint up inside the coat before then attach to the base, which isn't my favourite. I'm one of these people that likes attaching their model to the base and then just painting it rather than painting the base separate to the model. But, I think this might have to be an exception, and seeing as it's a character figure, that's fine. I don't mind doing it that way around sometimes. Now, I've had this figure for a good old while now. I bought it when I was working on some Emperor's Children figures, just as kind of a nice model to sort of have in the background. I wasn't planning on buying a bunch of demons to go with her, but maybe I will at some point. And with a new Chaos Space Marine Codex on the way, I'm hoping that will kind of reiterate my want to do some work on my Emperor's Children. Hopefully I'll get this model done at the same time. I think she could be a fun project to paint just right. It's definitely a nice model, but if you want this model, there's not a lot you're going to do with it other than make an Infernal Enrapturess. And as I've said already, that's kind of fine. If you've been a little bit more creative and have done a conversion of this model, I would love to hear about it in the comments. If you found this review helpful, please give it a like. If you would like to see some more, there are already a bunch of videos on my channel, and if you hit subscribe, I put up videos every Saturday, both of newer and older miniatures. Just depends what I feel like at the time. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, hobbying.